So they then removed us from committee. We were taken to industrial area prison, where we were staying. We stayed in the industrial area prison for about 3 years.
Hi, welcome to Fanya Mambo Africa. Always excited to have conversations on this space. And today, again, it's exciting because I have one of the most vocal, most resilient, someone who cares about the people, speaks about the people, shares concerns about the people, debates in the Senate about the people because he was elected by the people to speak for the people. Senator.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
A lot of us just see you in parliament talk and critique the government, but really we do not know your story. So of course we know you're the senator of Kisii County.
Okay.
But we would like to get a bit of your background information. Where were you born? How was your childhood? And stuff around that.
Oh my God, I didn't know you were going to start it there. Good. I'm born in Kisii. Very interestingly, because I was born the time when my father was very young and my mother was also young. At that time, they had just left school. But my father was a bit clever, bright, they tell me. And he was amongst the kids who were picked over the Mboya flights to the US.
Oh, the story we read?
Yes. My father was amongst those students. So he then... but he didn't fly from here. Because there were 3 groups. He was in the group that took a ship from Mombasa and all the way went up to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was a colony of the US at one time.
Yes.
And the University of Puerto Rico was where they would first bring Africans, because the Latin Americans mix between black people, Latinese, and all that. So my father went. By the time he actually left, my mother was expecting me.
Oh, so he left you.
She was a young girl. She was 22. So she left me, my mom, and him. And me and my mom remained behind. My father then went to the US. And then now you can extrapolate that to 1960, about 7 or 8. He had finished his PhD. He was a young boy. He was 26. And by the time he was finished, those days, of course, he left University of Puerto Rico, then went to Harvard, then left Harvard, went to University of Syracuse, which was in New York, finished his PhD, and took a plane back.
Did he, by any chance, meet Obama Sr.?
Yes, they knew each other. In fact, Obama was working in my father's ministry. When my father came back, Mzee Kenyatta then gave him a job immediately as the Minister for Economic Planning and Development. You may not have this history again. That's why I say, please, let's not get rid of all old people. 1969 was when Tom Mboya was killed.
Yes.
Tom Mboya was the Minister for Economic Planning.
Yes.
When Mboya died, my father was an economist. So he was then picked by Kenyatta.
Oh, so he replaced Tom Mboya?
He replaced Tom Mboya. And in fact, at that time, my father had come, he went to Kisii, he ran for elections, he won at 27, came to the National Assembly at 28, then he started his stuff. And then, I'm really trying to cut the story. Then I'm there, I joined my dad as I'm growing up, and I have brothers and sisters, family members. Then we move on. Finally, the only most incredible thing that happened to me, and this is what I think most people don't understand, because I hear this argument about, of course, child of the dynasty, your father was a minister in Kenyatta's regime, therefore you guys should be, no.
Rich kids.
Rich kids, no. I grew up with my mom from the age of 1 until when I was 15. That means I was in Form 2.
Oh, when your father came back, you're not part of...
I was in Form 2 now.
Okay.
So my father, of course, started taking care of me, but by that time, my mother had moved on. She waited for him for 10 years and he didn't show. So I was with my mom. She was a single mother. as she's trying to, she worked in a bank, very young, clever girl. Then at that time, then my mother got married to somebody else. So when my father came, I had two families. My father also then, of course, married. So I have stepbrothers on my mother's side, and I have stepbrothers and sisters on my father's side.
So are you the only
I'm the only
child
child
of the
share,
two?
yes.
Oh.
Then during the period of 0 to 15, I saw it. I saw how I would sit in the house with my mother and she would tell me, I don't even know what you people are going to eat. I mean, by that time I was alone, but I would have relatives staying with us. I saw her begin to pay my fees. At that time, when she got married, I then, of course, had a stepfather who was an incredible, really wonderful man. He treated me like his son. He didn't have issues. He was educated. He is, in fact, who gave me the foundation and the capacity I have. Because he kept on telling me to study history, geography. He was always pushing me. I was extremely good in reading and writing. He taught me Swahili. My Swahili is purely from my stepfather and other teachers who are, because I used to live in a teacher's compound. Then I went to school, finished high school in Kisii High School. Then I now went to Form 4. I passed from Kisii High School. I then went to St. Mary's Yala.
Where?
Yes, that is the first time I ever experienced the Luo community, their dreams, their desires, their hopes. I began to understand Kenya now from that perspective. Finished my 2 years in St. Mary's. And again, St. Mary's Yala was an incredible school. I hope one day I'm trying to build a school now. I hope one day I'll do what they did. We went to St. Mary's Yala. The first time you are in the school, you are allocated a classmate who you go to his home and you don't know.
Oh,
yes.
Like an exchange.
Yes. So I lived with the Luo community. The guy was called Okoth, who ended up being a teacher. I lived with Okoth's family for 3 terms.
Interesting.
You live. Imagine I'm a child of a minister. I'm dropped in school with GK cars. But I then leave school with a gentleman who I don't know. We are forced to become friends. The only thing we shared, we were Catholics. So we go to church with Okoth. And Okoth then, when we close school, I go to his home. And we go to a home where there is nothing. Nothing. There are no mattresses, there are no beds, and then after I arrived, of course, now these guys were hearing, and the Catholic priests would receive us. So then I was introduced to Okoth's uncle, who then had a bed. So he had to vacate his bed for me to sleep because I was a child of a minister. And Okoth's home was there, but we had mats and beddings which we would use. Really, really, really humble background. I then got malaria, then struggled with it until I went back to school for 6 months. Finally, I've never had malaria for 35 years.
Hey, what was that?
Because because the malaria was so bad, my body worked and then built a natural immunity.
Wow.
I have never had malaria for that long. Then I come to University of Nairobi. What do you find? Mishere Mugo, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Professor
This is
Kahabi.
which year now?
You talk about 1980.
Wow.
Yes. Then you find the most incredible human beings I've met in my life. They take through their books. I went through Karl Marx. I went through the Emancipation of Africa. I read a guy called Frantz Fanon. I went through this whole, as a student. Then the school now the university begins to now shape my mind. 1982, coup
happens. Before coup happens, what is it you're studying?
I was studying finance and marketing, finance and in the university they always used to give us one major and then
Yes.
you do other small ones.
Yeah.
So I did finance and foreign relations, I did finance and marketing, did finance and accounting, and finally I settled into finance and economics.
Interesting. I actually would have guessed maybe political science.
No. Then I hit 1982. I'm in the University of Nairobi, first year, military coup comes, Raila is there, Kina Uchuka and everything, and I'm part of the team that is saying Moi must go.
As a young person at that point.
Yes, go and check, the records are there. So I get arrested, I'm a son of a minister. We go to jail, we go to committee, at night Raila is brought, and that is the reason why I've always had this, it's an incredible feeling you get when you hear You are in the cells. You know those things you hear in the movies where you hear somebody walk, tap,
Yeah.
tap. Raila
And the
was
chains
walking.
and the
Raila
doors.
was being walked out of the cells at 3 in the morning. And we were told he's going to be hanged.
What?
Yes. So we go, we are put in the cells, we stay there, then we're removed from the cells, we are brought to GSU training school to be interrogated. We were interrogated for 4 months, writing statements and everything. We finish. Every time we are being told we are being charged for treason, everything. Immediately, many of our colleagues who are Gen Zs, that's why I keep telling Gen Zs, please don't dismiss many of us. The Gen Zs then, at that time, formed into groups. We are about 126 university students who had been arrested.
Were you worried that you could, I mean, when you hear Raila being walked out for execution,
Yes.
were you worried that you could face execution? And I think you've pulled away from very far from the mic.
We knew we were next. We had reached a stage we agreed, we accepted our fate. We didn't care.
Then how did that go?
Then we somehow managed to get some of us who are in law school to start running our cases. We were very clever. We got ourselves to do our statements where it was impossible to actually convict us. So they then removed us from committee. We were taken to industrial area prison where we were staying. We stayed in industrial area prison for about 3 years.
And
every single 2 weeks, we were in court. Every single 2 weeks. There was nobody to prosecute.
Your dad was a minister.
Yes. There's nothing
so for 3 years.
There's nothing he could do, and I didn't like him much. I just believed he was part of the problem. When I hear people talk about how Gen Zs sometimes hate their parents, I was in that mindset. The only wonderful thing is that my father looked for me through some source, and we met. He came to the prison, and he just told me, that's what men go through. So you are a man? I told him, yes, carry on. But I'll be there. If there is anything, I'll tell you.
So you carried the full...
Yes, continued. We went to court, charged. We used to go there every 2 weeks. We started the cases. Then our leader, young man from Bungoma, was called Titus Adungozi, died. A friend of mine who was...
Oh, sorry.
A very young man. He was from central Kenya. He was also killed after 2 days. He was given a drink, and we think he was poisoned. And then we now changed again and started looking for staff, started recruiting the prison warders, and we persuaded them to make sure they got our food and all that. And then after about 2.5 years, somehow we went to court, and we met. There's a man called Chunga.
Bernard
Chunga. He then came and said he has filed a nolle prosequi, and we were released. And we didn't know. We had nobody. Me, I didn't have relatives who were around. My father, I think, was out of the country. My mother was in Kisii. I mean, I was released, and I was in the halls of High Court.
Alone?
Yes, I didn't have a single penny. All of us were released alone. So I then, of course, my dad lived in Lavington, so I walked home. And you know, then there was no mobile. So my sisters called the number he had left them and said, Richard has been released, he's here. So he told them, wash him, clean him, go and cut his nywele zake, mtoa hiyo chawa yote, nini, they cleaned me up. And the following day, Moi announced that all university students who were released from prison are free to sit for their exams in the next 7 days.
So that's how you ended up...
So all of us, the 120, now we were about 121. I can tell you who was in prison with me, Wachira Waruru. The MD of Citizen. Odworo Ongwen, who's Raila's PA, was in prison with me. There was a gentleman called Ken Obimbo, credible engineer guy, smart guy. We are David Murade.
This Jubilee.
David is the one who used to bring us alcohol in prison.
Hey, so you guys started indulging.
He would bring us, what do you call that thing? This thing called, it's like a wine. What is it called?
Muratina?
It's a drink that ladies like so much. It's a small bottle. I'll remember the name. So he used to order those things and they are put in plastic cups and they are brought when we're in the cells. So he brings and people will drink. So we go back because people are breaking down. People were breaking down. Then, of course, we left, went to the university and indeed sat for exams, all of us. We either had the best grades or good grades, and because we used to read.
You're sharp kids.
Prison, we used to read. We used to read a lot.
Okay.
A lot. I would do like 2 books a day.
Oh.
Yes, on a 24-hour basis, I'll run through 16 chapters. We'll read. Then, finishing exams, I was in prison with a friend of mine called Frankie Reri, who was the MD recently of Housing Finance. Mm-hmm. There was a friend of mine called David Mambo. I mean, it was a generation, Evans Viticia, who ended up being the Africa head of Standard Chartered Bank. All these people, they passed, they all left. We all left. I got into the next flight with the support of my dad, because he gave me a ticket then. Frankie Reri was my friend, was the chairman of something called ISEC, Association of International Economic and Commerce Students. And they put me in a flight to New York.
And that's how you exit Kenya at that moment.
In the US.
But before we go to the US, what would you say was your worst experience during this time that you're in prison? I mean, 3 years is a long time for a young person.
One is, there was a time we didn't know what was going to happen. We used to say we were in purgatory. You are either between hell or heaven. You know that place in the middle. Sometimes we get news, or people went and talked to Moi, he wants to release you. Then we wait, it passes. The second one is, as we were in prison, the more days we stayed, the friends and relatives who were coming to see us reduced. So essentially, we were alone. We were alone. And then you have to look for mechanisms, how you're going to survive, how to carry yourself, how to make sure you don't collapse, how you make sure that it doesn't become, I mean, there were cases like a friend who died, he literally committed suicide. All right. And it was a very excruciating experience.
But at least Murate made it.
No, Murate was one of the most wonderful. Till today, he's one of my most wonderful friends. David was always magnanimous. His father was running Murate and Wines and Spirits. The father used to come to court.
Now I see where it was easier for him to get alcohol.
The father used to come to prison to see us. And he would visit us. David Mambo's mother would come. We carried ourselves in a very interesting manner. And that is when we understood that even this nonsense, you find people talking about how we are tribes, it's nonsense. We were a hodgepodge. We had 2 Somali guys. We had 1 guy from Coast. 2 guys from Coast. I mean, we were Kenyans, but young kids who are saying, we want to change the country.
And when I hear that story and I see what happened in Kenya in 2024,
yes,
it's almost a similar thing. So when you see the young people fight the older generation,
yes,
maybe because, again, maybe a lot of you people have not told you. Of course, Raila story is in the open, we understand, but...
It is true. Many, I haven't prayed. Macharia Gaido.
Yes.
Was in prison with us. If you look at the people who left that prison and now and see what they became, it changed all of us. Changed all of us completely. I mean, we understood Kenya's problem, but we didn't know how to fix it. So we felt that the most difficult experience for us and the person who was really breaking down the country was the Moi regime. And we were fighting the regime, not as Moi as a person. You see now, some people think that these young men are saying, Ruto must go, you're fighting Ruto as a person. No, we were fighting Moi's ideas, Moism. Just like right now, I believe the young people are actually fighting Rutoism. What is it you believe in as a president? I mean, why is it that our country has had a crisis for the last 3 years? Why isn't it? Things are not settling. Because the larger And this is what many of us believe. The larger perspective and the larger narrative that Kenyans are failing to see is that this regime was not made and created to solve the problems of dealing with the most vulnerable in our country. This regime was created to make money for the stakeholders who are basically
the political class.
The political class and the state capture team.
So cronies.
It's the cronism, yes.
So when you see young people agitate for change,
yes.
something you did in the 80s, how does that make you feel? And is it also one of the reasons why I wouldn't say suddenly, but some people would look at it as sudden, you've just become radical?
Number one, on that question, go to 2017, 15, 14, and see what I used to say on TV. Every single week, I was talking about what I'm talking about now, only that there was no public interest. Number two, you asked, the other question was, I've given you the answer for, have I become radical now? No. I have, go and Google my clips, check on Citizen Radio, NTV, look at what I used to say. How many times did I start saying MPs are eating money, they're corrupt? 2016. How many times was I talking about Uhuru's presidency? I raised issues about the executive. I talked about it. But Kenyans dismissed me. They thought the narrative, this guy is just looking for money. So the other question you're asking is, what did I do with...
When you see the young people.
Yeah, when I see the young people, first of all, that is why I was able to interpret that they would go to the streets. Because when now we were in prison, we started looking at the trend. There is a trend about the Kenyan political narrative. Every 5 years, the president and the vice president have always fought. Look at it.
That's true.
Kenyatta, Jaramogi went home. Kenyatta brought Murumbi didn't survive. Kenyatta then picked Moi. Are you with me? Why did Kenyatta bring Moi? A lot of people have never understood. And this is why I would want today, I'm so happy you've asked me that question. Kenyatta decided deliberately to give President Moi the presidency of the Republic, even when some of the people around Kenyatta were not willing to accept that position, because Kenyatta was trying to dismantle that narrative that the fight between Kenyatta and Jaramogi was between the Bantu and the Nilotes.
Oh, it was.
That is the narrative you see being peddled now.
Mm-hmm.
You get me?
Yeah.
That is the narrative that was being created. Kenyatta refused. And he appointed Jaramogi. Then Jaramogi was not now disagreeing with Kenyatta because of the tribe aspect. It was now ideological. Jaramogi started asking the questions. No, if we go capitalistic, then we are going to have no safety net to take care of our poor. Kenyatta was saying, no, the models which we have are either socialist, communist, or capitalist. And the West, who are going to be the ones funding us and giving us resources, have agreed we go capitalistic. And anyway, our nature as a people, Africans, we are too selfish, too individualistic for us to be communal or socialist. We are pure capitalists. Then, next, Moi becomes president. What happened? Moi fought with Kibaki. What was Kibaki talking about? This corruption is getting out of hand. Moi had a problem with Saitoti. What were the issues? Sharing of the loot. 5 years down the line later, Moi comes in, he goes. Who becomes president? Kibaki. Who is Kibaki's vice president? Kalonzo. Most incredible scenario. Kalonzo never raised an issue, never did anything. But remember, Kibaki's time is when we had a problem. And the problem was that during Kibaki's time, again, there was an issue about the elections. Remember? That's when we had a problem 2007. That leads to the coalition agreement. Why did we have a coalition agreement? Because we had 200 members of parliament. 201. Kibaki got 200, Raila got 101. 101 was me.
Oh.
Because I was not in ODM. I had been elected on PDP. In fact, ODM had rigged me. That's how I went to PDP. When I came to elect Marende, That one vote,
Oh, you are the determinant.
I was the determinant. That is how Marende became speaker, and that is how Kibaki decided to form a coalition with Raila, because that majority was one. So Kibaki couldn't govern. Raila comes in. What happens now? Fast forward. Kibaki takes over. Raila disagrees with Kibaki. What were they disagreeing about? Raila is saying, you remember those issues?
Yeah.
We are not dealing with the issues about our country's dysfunctionality as a principle. We are dealing with the people. We now started looking at Raila. Can we demonize him as much as we can? Can we demonize Kibaki with the Kikuyu community? Who do we demonize also? As a result, now that movement comes in until now, what happens? ICC comes. What created the ICC? It was the Kibaki elections. So William and Uhuru turned this thing beautifully and say, we are being lynched because we are fighting for our communities. Let us go to ICC. Whatever they come back. In the process, we've messed up chapter 6. Now you can actually run for office even if you are being charged of high crimes and misdemeanors. So Uhuru goes, William goes, they come back. What was the promise? When Uhuru has done his 10 years, we'll hand over to you. Again, 5 years, William is cantankerous, making noise, he's fighting with his boss. What happens? Uhuru leaves, William comes in. Did it take 5 years before Gachagua and William started fighting?
Was it even and a half? 2.
Thank you. So my argument is this. Listen to that narrative. Aren't we supposed to do something about it, correct that error?
Yeah.
To change that narrative. That is the narrative we are dealing now. It is again being prepared for us to now begin again going tribal, and yet the facts affecting our country are non-tribal. They are basically functional.
And I hope we are able to sort the dysfunctionalness of this country and make it functional.
Thank you.
Back to your story.
I hope I've given you my story.
You've given.
Yes.
Then you go to the US. We are back to the US.
I go to the US, I'm washing dishes, I'm cleaning up restaurants. I worked in a nuclear plant. I then begin working in media. That's how you notice I'm able to manage myself. I then started working in one of the universities. There's a radio station, North Carolina State. I went to Duke. I then finished my master's degree. I then received information my father is unwell and I'm needed. I pack my bag, pick everything,
Back home
in Nairobi. I come and find my father is unwell. About 6 months later, he passes on. So during the time he's unwell, I then begin his campaigns in Kisii. That was 2002. I'm the one who campaigned for my dad. I looked at the strategies. I was handling the money, everything. I was the one who would arrange the campaign teams, where they're going to be, how they're going to be. And he won, but he was unwell. So he died in office. All right. Then now the by-election comes and...
By default.
Yeah, by default.
You're the one who's campaigning.
I'm the one who's campaigning. But in Kisii culture, I had to let it go.
Oh.
Kisii culture advises you traditionally that once your father has been in office and he dies in office, you don't take over immediately. You let it pass. Mm-hmm. So I ran, but I was being told that's just rehearsal. So I let the former MP who was there, who was not the former, the MP who ran against my dad for over 30 years, Honorable Jimmy Angwenyi, he won. And I think it was the best decision I've ever taken. Because if I had come in again, at that time, my father had been in power for 29 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
People were a bit tired with him. The criticism were about, it's not about whether he's good or not. He's been there for too long.
We're tired of this face.
We're tired of him. We love him. But, so I then had to do ABCD. Finally, I get elected.
The following election now.
Yes.
And that's how you venture into politics.
That's why I venture into politics. Then I continue with the constituency. Then the constituency is broken into, I continue being in Kitutu Church South, and the other guys are in Kitutu Church North. Then I continue like that. I finish my terms, and I felt I had now
done enough as an MP.
Yes, I had outgrown the job. I was reasonably doing well. My CDF, I think I was number 1 or 2 in Kenya severally. I am happy with you've never seen anybody say I was a thug, I was a crook, I was pilfering their money. I did schools. I did what I could do under the circumstances, and I'm very, very, very happy with that record, because that is how come the people of Kisii, not even Kisii, the people of Kitutu who used to elect me, have really, really carried me as their own baby.
And here you came now in finally as a senator.
Yes.
And you've served, this is your first time as a senator.
Yes, the Senate shocked me.
Why?
The Senate is where you see how the money is being eaten, because we are doing oversight.
Yeah.
And I'm in the CPAC committee. And you see where a governor pays a legal firm 900 million for one case. And nobody checks it out, nobody arrests him, nobody asks questions. The committee makes a recommendation that the EACC should go and investigate, and the DCI, but it ends there.
So would you say that the Senate has also suffered capture, state capture?
I've said that before. Why would they remove me from my committee in CPAC at the Senate? Because I was asking those questions about governors of ODM and governors of other parties, but I was more interested in ODM because of the party I belong. And when I was asking these questions, it looks like some people were not very happy, because they are part and parcel of the issue of how Madilzina. There are other senators who are rent collectors, others are clinical officers who are doing whatever, others are the ones managing the funds for whatever you want to bring in, whether it's a bill and everything. That is the rottenness that you have in that Senate.
So generally speaking, do you
and
think...
the National Assembly.
Do you think we need the Senate in this country?
It was a good idea. The Senate is required, yes, because look at what happened after Gen Zs. It was the Senate that remained behind. The rest ran away. The only problem that you have, again, deliberately, the Senate has been made dysfunctional. All right, you know, we are told to oversight funds, but we cannot budget those funds. Those funds have been taken to the National Assembly. Why? Because the drafters of the Constitution, I believe the big boys we have today, some running as governor, some are party leaders, made sure that the money is sought out at the National Assembly, because they were feeling that with time, many of them might end up being in the National Assembly and not these bigger positions. So the Senate has been neutered. There are certain things we can't do. Why? Because we don't have the mandate. Right? Like, how can you budget for me, but I do oversight for the budgeting you have done, and yet I don't participate, and yet my job is protect the county governments.
That's a gap.
Yes, because if I'm supposed to be budgeting and giving money to the county governments, I start when, like now, we are doing what is called the BPS, the budget policy statements, to say, this is what the counties want, this is how they want it. But even the money that goes to the counties, and obviously it has become, again, it's a ruse, it's another useless thing. The reason why we can't even fight for any more money is because the governors are stealing so much of it. MPs are saying from the National Assembly, we can't give Senate any more money. Like now, I think they're giving 405 billion. Because Senate governors are stealing all the money anyway. Why should we give them money? They forget that they're also stealing the same money.
Do you want to go back to the Senate 2027?
I don't mind. I can run any position in this country now. I'm comfortable. I've done my homework well. I know the issues well. I see where the gaps are. And that is why I'm joining the team of Kina Jimmy Wanjigi and Kina Martha Karua. And we really want to sit down with Gachagua and show him. Because if you see this thing the way it is, let me tell you something. Can I tell you something so that you understand why sometimes people like me get really angry?
Yeah.
Nairobi City County can collect 100 billion a year. That is what the Controller Budget, the Auditor General, have said from their extrapolated expectations about increased change in business, number of businesses that are being registered and all that, and the businesses where they are. Look at what my friend, the governor of Murang'a, has done. Okay?
Yeah.
2 years ago, his revenue collection was 200 million. He brought in a system, he brought experts, he used Kinamunga, he has brought in the chairman of Equity Bank, he has brought in the people who know. Guess what? Murang'a's revenue collection has hit 1.2 billion in 1 year.
Yep.
How did that happen? It's not a miracle. You must have a leadership that is deliberate, that is willing to collect the money. What does he do? He has taken GPS technology, mapped out Murang'a, marked out the urban areas, knows the building of the urban areas. So a clerk who's collecting revenue is just given the list. Go to this street from street 3 to 14. Tell us whether there are businesses running there and let this guy to register themselves online and tell them to pay their taxes, which is 10,000 a year. That's what he did.
Just make systems work.
Tell me, why is Nairobi systems not working? The financial system that is supposed to run Nairobi County government finances, till today, Sakaja doesn't have it.
But he came up with lazima work, maybe.
So the one he has created is his. Now you understand what that one is doing, because instead of collecting 100 billion a year, it's at 12 billion.
It is very unfortunate. Sometimes as Kenyans, we really get angry with these governors, but then the fact that the contract is 5 years,
yes,
it pains more. Some people see you...
And that's why I disagree with NADCO. You're increasing the number of years to 7 years. What are you increasing in Ghana?
I don't think anyone wants 7 years.
We'll kill that thing. Let them bring it. We'll kill it.
Kill it even before it
We'll
gets
kill
to us.
it. Let them bring it.
Because it's...
We'll kill it.
Anyway, this country makes people very angry oftentimes. But yes, people would see you debate very serious, talk about Adani, talk about deals. The other day, in fact, before I go, I have remembered, yes, you said that you were questioning if we know who owns Lamu Port, yes, and Mombasa Port.
Yes.
Maybe this is the point you tell us. What do you know?
Do you know?
Personally, I have no idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The ports are either in the process of signing an agreement and a transaction to be handed over to private individuals, including the Lamu Port and the Port of Mombasa. The public is being told that now ports have to be privatized and given to individual companies that can generate revenue. But you see, the way they want to do it is that the people of Coast and Mombasa area, let me say the coastal region, who are really sharing that port as their bequeathment, and it's supposed to be giving actually even the city, county of Mombasa money. What has happened? Now, another question I'll ask you as a Kenyan, as I'm answering what you asked me. Today, if I sit with you and tell you how much money the Port of Mombasa makes, you can't tell me. Some people will tell you it makes about 50 billion a month. Others will tell you it makes about 20 billion. Others will tell you it's 19 billion. No committee of parliament has ever sat down to ask, when you started making the money 10 years ago, how much were you making? And now. And there is a scientific way.
Yeah. You
calculate that. Actually, an actuarial scientist will get, that's what Babu Wino will do for you for free. Never touch it. That is where the cash is collected from. So, when you take the Port of Mombasa and the Port of Lamu and everything, their guys, the deep staters, are going to share amongst themselves, and sooner or later, they'll make sure they tell Kenyans, no, let's privatize. There is nothing wrong with privatization. What is wrong is the way you do it.
But sometimes I feel then make it work instead of making it private.
Absolutely. Deliberately, they don't want to make it work because they are sharing the money. They're sharing the money.
So with this information, you in the Senate,
yes,
us as the citizens,
yes,
from where you sit,
yes,
what should we do with the information?
No, we have. You see, that is the contradiction and the irony of democracy. If you get a good leader to come in and take over power after Ruto, we can actually put rules down. We can create standing orders. We can change the constitution so that if there is a matter of national importance, for example, everything else can be stopped and this matter is discussed to its logical conclusion. The system that we have right now, and I don't want to use some cases I've seen lately, is a system designed and in such a manner that even if we caught you stealing, even if we found you have stolen 1 billion shillings, most probably the fine will do because the books.
The fine does. We are seeing it. We've seen it with Waititu's
yes,
case.
The fine is 60 million shillings. And yet how much money is it claimed you got? It's 1 billion. My case is Waititu is an escape route. Waititu, in fact, to me, is not an issue. That is what Waititu has done, is what every governor does. So you are taking Naini Waititu now trying to show everyone, saying, Waititu is corrupt, or he's facing the music. But that's what every governor does. There's nothing unique that, I mean, how many times have we spoken how you have on Kilimani area? My phone, guys from Mandera, from Isiolo, from wherever, guys from Bungoma, they tell me that building which is there is owned by I work there as an askari. But there's nobody to hold anybody to account. So what I'm saying is this. First, you people who are going to go for these coming elections, please, let us elect people of integrity, people who can keep their word. And if he goes to that house and he votes once against that which you people have asked him to do, recall, because the clause exists.
Yeah.
Yes.
And hopefully IBC will be existing.
Absolutely.
By then. Now, you're always too serious on matters governance, which is very important because that's what, in your state, what you should be doing. But on the larger African continent, who would you say is your best president or a leader that you admire? Current? Yeah. So which one?
Kagame.
Kagame. And yes. Why?
You see, in 20 years, Kagame took a country, and I lived in Rwanda. I was there during the genocide because I was operating a duty-free shop at the airport in Kanombe, in Kigali. I had just, that time when I was campaigning with my dad and he had won, actually I moved to Rwanda because my friends that I went to university with called me and said, then as I went to Rwanda to look at opportunities, that's when the genocide had just gone down and UN was moving in. And my friend actually called me, the agenda was for me to go so that if things don't improve, I pick him from the border in a place called Gisenyi, so that I bring him to Nairobi. When I went, the guy told me, by the way, no, it looks like things are improving and I don't want to leave. I said, okay, can we take the risk? We get askaris with Land Cruiser. We went. I settled in Kigali. There's no running water. There's no electricity. There's no Kigali City Council. There were no police officers. There was no military. There were no schools. Nothing. There was no electricity running. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, number two, the crime rate was astronomical. The violence was crazy. There was nothing. And that is why I tell people, you see, I swear to God, let Kenyans allow me to say this because it's really contradictory. If William Ruto was dictatorial, and he was fixing the mess we have, and he's a dictator because he is now challenging those people who are supposed to serve the public, to serve well and not steal the money, I would be saying, hallelujah, William, be a dictator even for 100 years. Kagame came in. Guess what? Always picked the international best practice, which is affordable. What did he do? Came to Kenya. The people who started running and coordinating the education policy for the people of Rwanda were Kenyans. There were no hospitals. King Faisal Hospital, which is in Kigali, was being run. It was closed. He came, picked Kenyan doctors from here, set it up. Rwanda had no university. Give Kigali University in the next 10 years. You see what you're going to get. They're going to be employing, all companies in Kenya are going to be employing Rwandans. Every Rwandese was told, you join a public school, you work in government, you are a PS, I want your child to go to the school called Nyamakima Primary School, there where you live. Every 24th of the month, every Rwandese stops everything they do, they go to their neighborhood, clean up the place, and if you don't, Mzee wa Nyumba Kumi comes and tells you, you did not attend last week. If you don't attend next week again, you know what we'll do, we'll issue summons.
So Rwanda stands out as your?
Town is clean. Border riders are clean. They carry 2 helmets. You drive around in a matatu. Nobody makes noise. If it is music, if it's noise, you tell the driver, he turns it down. There's no makanga to collect the money. You give the driver, there's a place you put the money. Kids go and do exams. There's no parent who bothers to look for a leakage so that this child gets an A.
Systems work.
Systems work. The lights in Kigali work. Kagame went to a place called Lake Kivu. He picked the methane gas, which is there, converted into electricity and power. Rwanda is now running its own power.
Have you had some people consider him as the Putin of Africa. Why that comparison in your
The point
opinion?
I want to give is this. You see, Kenyans are busy, and many of the Rwandese friends I have are always telling me that the guy is a dictator. We don't have the freedom that we have. My argument is very simple. Rwanda is an exceptional case that needed somebody like Kagame to fix it, just like I believe Kenya is an exceptional case. The only difference in Kenya is that you don't infringe on our rights to criticize you. You don't abduct us so that you can kill us, but please allow you to talk to you about it and fix the damn mess. What people are talking about, the guy being like Putin and being a dictator, is that they never say how he has cleaned up the mess. And you have to go to Rwanda and see the mess he has created. I mean, he has cleaned out. Whereas for us, we want to be dictators and create the mess.
Even double the mess.
And double the mess. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
I mean, Rwanda's budget is not more than 58 billion Kenyan shillings.
We are at 1.4 trillion.
Do you know how many soldiers and troops Kagame has? 200,000. All of them impeccably dressed. Good uniforms, new equipment, new military houses. Every military school in Rwanda, you go there, you marvel. You marvel. It has nothing to do with this guy being a dictator. You needed somebody. Don't you see our police officers out there walking around with uniforms which are tattered, with shoes which are... Why is that? It is the money being stolen. It is not that we don't have the money. So don't you need somebody with some crazy brain to stop this stealing?
Agreed.
That's where I am.
In West Africa,
yes,
we've had nations where they've had coups, and these have been in Mali, Niger, I think Chad,
yes,
Burkina Faso, and all this.
Yes.
But my concern is with the three nations who've decided this is how we are moving.
Yes.
They were sent out of ECOWAS and decided to create their own alliance of Sahel nations.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
For me, and I quote Kagame, he said, it depends on what you do after you've taken over that military coup.
I mean, 2 years down.
If these guys take military coups and they're going to continue with the gluttony of pilfering their resources, I mean, I can tell you that for me, when I look at the young man from
Burkina
Faso, and you see what he has done, I mean, this guy, this young man, came into power. And in exactly a period of 3 months, the debt which Burkina Faso had, which had been created by the ruling elite before him, of 4.6 billion, he paid it in 1 day. Since then, what has he done? The largest item that Burkina Faso used to import, because most of those guys in Burkina Faso, their food is based on tomato. The largest item was not fuel oil. It was tomato paste. The amount of money that a country uses to buy, like in Somalia, their food is based on tomato. The lasagna, I mean the macaroni, the lasagna, and yes, their food is based on. He introduced 3 to 4 companies. Burkina Faso can grow its own tomatoes, which used to go to waste. This guy is bringing up trucks, he's buying them, and they're collecting garbage and everything. He's setting up structures. I know the World Bank team from here, Kenyan, who's now managing, is setting up the PFM Act. The gentleman is saying, you hear me? Yes. Let us stop the nonsense. Today, you want to fly to Burkina Faso on government business. You are booked into a room, the hotel where you don't pay more than equivalent Kenya 3,000 shillings. Why do you want to live in a hotel where you're paying 45,000? Why? Just live in a decent room, which is given you housing and everything, because that's what the country can afford.
Yeah.
Those are the things which leadership must understand. So for me, Traore is that exception in Africa that has been missing since who? Since Sankara.
What do you think of his idea of sending away the troops from France, the US, and all these?
What are they doing on the African continent other than collecting minerals and reserves and oil and getting Africans to get in corruption deals where we're impoverishing our people and they're taking everything? Calculate and see how many trillions, not of French francs, of dollars that France has collected from West Africa, from each of those countries. They collect the uranium, they take rare minerals, they pick the diamonds and the gold, and then they recruit us in the ruling class, and we become part of their carriers of those minerals to Dubai, and of course they give us those big cars, the G-Wams, and that's what we are doing. You see what Traore has done? He has built 42 hospitals, level 6, each one.
In a period of 2 years.
Brand new. In 2 years. So you see, between Traore and President William Ruto, who should I vote for?
It's rather obvious.
He's doing tarmac roads. I mean, we are saying the issue is not that we hate President Ruto. We just hate bad governance. Because for me, I see what it has done to our country. And if we do not stop it, you see these neighborhoods you have here which are pristine, nice lights, nice... young men will come here and sit down and hold their parties here, and they become militiamen, and they tell you, you can go to hell. What do you want to do?
Something else that, of course, comes in line with that is how a country relates with other nations.
Yes.
By default.
Yes.
We have seen how our foreign affairs has become a big issue in the diplomatic space. The other day, Kalonzo said that blood gold is coming from Sudan to Kenya and being exported to the UAE and the likes as Kenyan gold. How is all this going to affect our foreign policy?
Kenya is now known as a country that is basically doing a business, become a business enterprise. The highest bidder will take it. Previously, Kenya took some irreversible decisions on certain international matters. Why? Because we wanted to give an image, which was a true position, that we were a neutral country within the region. That is why we welcomed everybody. There were never business interests, even in South Sudan, when I was the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs and I was sent to go and do the referendum. We did not go to South Sudan to go and negotiate how we are going to start collecting timber to come and sell in Mombasa. That was not our responsibility. But you could go there as a private individual if that's what you felt you wanted to do. Our job was to make sure that South Sudan becomes independent and make sure we hold a referendum, make sure they hold elections so that it becomes a neighbor that is a free country. What are we doing now? We are trading with everybody. You hear people are growing maize in Congo-Brazza. They're growing 50,000 acres of land, they're planting whatever. You hear guys are holding ranches in Botswana now, other ranches in Malawi. They're growing corn in Malawi. And then you will see them make an announcement that is so beautiful. Oh, you know, the government has not imported any maize and we are not... You go to the border in Busia and you find it's the maize that is coming in. Where it's coming from, you don't know. Are they paying duties? No. We are now doing houses where the presidency has turned the construction of these houses, which are called affordable, is basically based in the office of the president, and the trading is being done, which we have explained before. And the reality and the honesty is that we don't even know any facts about it, including the other day I saw somebody send me something. They brought in 50,000 metric tons of gypsum, duty-free. How do you know that that gypsum, once it comes, it may not go to affordable housing, it will go to... Affordable housing was not supposed to receive tax breaks on anything.
How is this going to affect... Of course, diplomacy is long-term for most countries.
So, what we did... What is my opinion about Raila? For me, Raila should have gotten that seat on merit. He has his own issues. I know people who have criticized me and said how stupid I think he may not do anything. I think there is something about Raila that I've constantly admired. His ability to stay on, his ability to keep on pushing. The last chapter of his life is baffling me. I am finding it a bit below par to the level which I was holding him. But that doesn't mean that I've lost complete trust and respect for him. I haven't. I understand circumstances could have changed. So, you go to Ethiopia, what do? I was trained in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Number one, when you go to Ethiopia, there's a way you dress. Yeah, you see the way I'm dressed. Even when it is really, really cheap, it looks official. the way you carry yourself, and you're going for those things, you carry yourself with dignity. What do we do? Yote yawezekana. Huh? People were screaming all over the place. Other countries who are delegates to that function were coming to vote. So you are telling them, if they don't vote for Raila, then they will most probably suffer the consequences of the noise, of the criticism, of the hate. And yet, that is something that could have been done by Raila himself with 2 of his officers. And you're done. So there was backlash. Number 2, the original story that comes out is that President Uhuru was actually supposed to be running for that seat. Or President Kikwete. Because we are trying to slowly figure out a way on how we are going to start bringing our people together, especially the former presidents, because they have the experience and whatever, so that hopefully we can fast track this thing of having one Africa. Because its positive aspects are obvious. So that became as an issue. Then it is in the information we get, the president decided to take it personally. Every diplomat that I spoke to told me they were shocked why our head of state was constantly engaging people, begging them to make sure, please vote. What is it that he was running away from? Some of them say they decided not to vote for Jacom, not for any particular reason. They were telling the president, go and fix your mess. You seem to be having a mess. We don't want to have the head of AU who will be issuing statements every day about corruption, about impeachments, about all that stuff. Go and fix your house. So, finally, this is the last point I want to make. If you have kids and you want your kids to work in any government department, the best place to work is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And it's not because of the money. The money is a little bit more than any other department. It is because of the training. That ministry has some of the best people, human beings I have ever met. You can meet an ambassador, you sit with him, and you ask him, will you teach me about nuclear energy? In 15 minutes, he'll tell you what it is, the science behind it, the possibilities, the weaknesses and success cases we've had. Which year, which country started, what did they do, who put... They know their stuff. In other words, you see the way I respond to questions and the way I answer them. This is foreign affairs. They trained me.
So we have no problem with our foreign affairs ministry at all?
No, but the ministry officials were all sidelined. When you remove the best trained individuals who are supposed to come and explain to you why this cup has got white and green, but for you, you want to insist it's a white cup, then you've lost the plot. The senior officers who were working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, most of them did not participate in the exercise. In fact, the people who were supposed to have been taken to Ethiopia, instead of having President Ruto and Raila carry the people they carried, were those 29 or whatever countries that were voting for us. Those were the ambassadors who should have been recalled and taken to Addis Ababa, and then they use, because they know the presidency and their officers who work in those countries.
What is this
and again,
to our image?
The information you have is that the president knows everything. So when he brings in the RLF, the guys from Sudan, to come to Nairobi to come and do whatever he wants to do, for him, he doesn't understand what you're saying. He doesn't understand the geopolitical implication of such a single act. Because that act, you affect Saudi Arabia. That act, you affect Jordan. That simple act of bringing those guys, you then bring in the issue, you then involve you bring the Israeli question in. So you're trying to create a powder keg in Nairobi, who wants a powder keg here?
No, we don't have the capability.
So either somebody really misadvised the president on this matter, or indeed somebody misadvised him again and told him that if he brings those militia here, in case you people decide to speak like Onyonka the way that you can have them unafinywa kina My brother, nafinywa hata au nafinywa by strangers. So let me pray that somebody misadvised him diplomatically. And I hope he is making arrangements to tell those people to vacate our country.
Certainly, we need that. We have a Trump presidency.
Yes.
What is your take so far? It's been 1 month and maybe like 20 days, but he's changing the world.
I've been a social democrat. I've been a person who looked at the left. I've been very sympathetic to some of the issues the left has raised, whether it is LGBTQ issues, whether it is about my dress, my choice, whatever it is. I've always accepted that position. What Trump is doing is what our team wants to do in Kenya. How are you going to dismantle the cartels that are running your government? Of course, I know the left is making noise and discussing the issue of USAID and everything. But the reality is that at some point, there comes a point when you are able to say, how did we get ourselves? The total amount of money we have for the Ministry of Education is 650 billion shillings in the financial year. The salaries that we are paying teachers are 200 billion. All right? The salaries we are paying university graduates, TVET, university lecturers and TVET, whatever, is about 79 million. So you're talking about 300 billion goes into maintaining those salaries and everything. So I ask you a question. Out of 650, you've spent 300. Where is 350 billion going? When was the last time you saw the education committee talk about this money? That is the money being shared as bursaries for locals. That's money being shared as scholarships for family, friends. You know, you voted for us. You know, we can have you go to Germany and France. That is the money that people are now being paid because the people in the system are the ones who are actually even printing the books that are being supplied to the schools that we have. And those schools, most of them are getting books which are outdated. The principals can't talk anything because they will lose a job and they'll be transferred. So you need a half-mad person to come in and break all that stuff. Remove that money where it's being eaten, take it all for free education. You are a Kenyan kid, put yourself on the school registration system. Where is your sublocation is this? Where is your ward is this? What is your sub-county is this one? Which school are you going to? You're in class what? Yes, go. The only money we want is for your relatives to look for your uniform. In fact, even uniform, we'll give you including school feeding. And it will take only 156 billion.
Only.
So why are we not having free education in our country? Because people are sharing the money.
So do you support Trump's cut on USAID?
Why are you giving Africans money to come and share? I mean, the amount of money, how much money has the world, has the American USAID has stopped coming to Kenya? How much?
I need to confirm the figure.
Check. How much is it, Fanyamambo?
$389 million, that's about 5 billion.
Yes. How much did we renovate State House with? 6.4 billion. Did we have to renovate State House and yet we need that money for health?
The president's travel and entertainment
is 26 billion. What are you getting money from the USAID for? Those are trappings. Those are trappings that are being given to chickens so that they can behave.
So it's time for Africa to fix its
Our
own.
budget is equivalent to 7 East and Central African countries. The 4 trillion collectible revenue as we speak today is about 2.5 billion, close to 3 trillion money from revenue. And that revenue is still being stolen. Guys are getting duty-free facilities. Guys are bringing the Muindis, those ones who own these chuma companies are bringing chumas from everywhere, duty-free. With all that nonsense, we are still collecting 3 trillion shillings. What are you spending 3 trillion on?
Stealing.
Thank you. We give money to our military. Do we give our military people the good equipment, the personnel, training facility? Are we creating institutions which are admirable? So that my son, who, for example, wants to do piloting, will say, my dream is to join Kenya Air Force. Are we?
I have seen pilots
Look
who
at the
work
police.
there want to
Look at the
exist.
police. Look at what we are doing with our nurses and doctors. I mean, for me, it borders on insanity, if not stupidity, what we are doing.
It is stupid, actually. Something else that has been key was we've had wars across the world, and Trump had sworn in when he gets in 24 hours. The war between Russia and Ukraine ends in 24 hours.
Yes.
Of course, maybe now is when the 24 hours are coming.
Yes.
What do you think about his meeting with Zelensky, how it went?
My
and do you
belief
think
is
he's going to end it?
Zelensky did well for his country because he stood the ground. The reality about Russia and Ukraine is very simple. You have to look at the Russian experience from their history. That Russia had certain countries which were surrounding it. The purpose of those countries that they had kind of laid a wall around it, a security wall, that would not be able to access, any country or any adversary would access Moscow. Ukraine is a country which is of mixed Jewish, German, Russian, and other communities. It's a country that has built itself because of these structures, which they created one of the best education structures in around that. It's called the Baltics region. Their education was excellent. They have created some of the best military techniques in the world, including uses of drones, including changing and modifying aeroplanes and everything. Ukraine is one of the countries that has been supplying us fertilizer globally. How they did that, I don't even know. Ukraine is a country that is very good in farming because their land is very... So you have a scenario where you have this country which wants to stay with the West, which is Ukraine, because of the liberal democracy that the West offers, and Russia that is saying that you can't bring that nonsense from the West close to our borders because then our security is challenged. Now, my argument is you know what the end of that is going to be. My suggestion is Kenya has no business with Russia and Ukraine on that war. If they want to stop the war, they can do it. If they want to continue, let them continue. My fear is they might blow everybody in the world with nuclear arms.
Do you think Trump is going to succeed in these peace talks?
The reality you have is that right now Trump is very popular amongst the white Americans. He is very unpopular amongst the blacks and everything because some of the programs that he's canceling were actually beneficial to the black community. And the black community has been marginalized in the US. They've been discriminated against because of race. Some of the programs were basically to encourage black kids to go to university, and funding was available and all that. Trump believes that if you're black and you're good, you fight on your own. You don't need a social welfare system. I disagree with him on that. But again, that social welfare system has been abused severally. All right, so it's a very delicate thing he's trying to do. For me, whatever direction he takes the US, it's for them. We also need to learn from what he's doing because this country needs somebody who's going to do that. That's honestly what I believe.
All right. Do you think the world, now this is just general,
Yes.
do you think we might end up in a World War III because of these factors that are happening?
If you don't handle the Russian case well, you don't deal with this one, which is boiling out in Rwanda because of the geopolitical aspect of it. South Africa is there, Angola, Burundi is there, Rwanda is there, now Congo is there and all that. Because the European issue, and Western European and Russian, it might flow and come and affect the African continent. But for now, my conviction and belief is that I have seen several good leaders of the Western world caution both sides and trying to look for a solution that is going to be agreeable. I hope they'll find it.
You hope so?
Yeah.
As we conclude, our African continent, of course, we have two wars. There's the Sudan and the Congo.
Yes.
But in particular, the Congo.
Yes.
Who do you think is responsible for this war and why?
Who's responsible for the war in the Congo? Of course, the reality, which is, if you have a country that doesn't have the capacity to manage itself, that is a country that historically has depended on a Western power, and that is the French, whose agenda was purely to try and reorganize and recoordinate the very existence of the French nation. You know, France receives more revenue from outside itself than what it collects domestically.
Yeah.
To be very honest with you, how I would pray and wish that these were the issues that on the African continent we are talking about. And not just talking and coming with the resolutions and asking African leadership on what we can do to make sure that where there is ineptitude and incapacity, then Africans can help each other, because we have the technology now. We have Africans who are well educated. We have the capacity to read what is supposed to be utilized. But because of these vested interest, I mean, you notice every Mzungu who comes here, including our chairman here, you see, will ask you, how can you people be in a place like this where the sun is on 24, if not 23 hours, and we don't use solar energy? What happened to the mindset? Why is it that there's no government which takes it upon itself so that we can actually utilize what God has given us? Why is it that you are an African country and you know that we are struggling with our environment, and you know Africa has really, really lost its forest cover for the last, I would say, 30 years. And what do we do in Kenya? We bring Chinese and they are cutting trees. And nobody asks. Governors are in need, the presidency is in need, Ministry of Forestry is in need. In fact, if you had a chance, they cut the whole of Karura, Ngong Forest can go down. Then you expect me to respect you. I can't. Then your value to me is not much. Then my respect for you becomes minimal. Because that what I expect you not to do, that are low-lying fruits, you are part of it. You are part of the problem.
It's very sad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been such an insightful conversation, and I've had so much. But one more thing, maybe in very short words. Where do you see Africa and US relations, since Trump has already started, for the next 4 years?
To be honest with you, how I wish that wasn't the question you asked me. Africans don't need anybody else to give them a relationship to be their friends. Let Africans sit down, we agree among ourselves, let's fix the damn place, because we know what needs to be fixed, we know what needs to be done, and let us have systems that function. I have no problem whatsoever if a Burundian walks in here and is given a job as a watchman and he works. I have no issue. Facilitate him, give him his credentials, allow him to live in Kenya as a good citizen so long as he doesn't break the law. But don't go and recruit individuals to come and start being given IDs in the Republic because you think you're so clever, so that you can increase the numbers at which you want to rig an election. Why would you want to rig an election? For me, if I went to Kisii and I'm running for Senate, and I found, actually, sincerely speaking, and I found 60, even 55% of my people don't want to vote for me, I might decide to say, no, I think you guys, get somebody else, you move with him, because I've done my best. There isn't any best that I can offer you. Why are we doing things which you look and you're like, what is wrong with us? So our continent now needs the Gen Zs to open up their minds. And you know what? I go back to the issue of education. 90% of what you see me discussing here and what I'm telling you is something I learned 30 years ago. There's nothing that has been brought that I know now, other than the little tidbits that I'm adding because I read online and whatever. Why? The education system was impeccable. I understood the issues. You are taught to understand them, how they will help you, and what you need to do with them. Right now, the education system we have, I don't know what it's all about, and I don't see what it's all about. So unless we begin to fix those very basic things, for example, what is wrong with Africa having an education program which is the same?
Absolutely nothing.
Yes, there's nothing wrong. That is how you build your critical mass of people who are educated in a certain manner, so that is how you can now introduce from the very early age of these kids, so that they begin to understand what is being African, what is being a good person, what is it that you were talking about governance, what is democracy, what are human rights? How do you manage yourself as a country, as an individual, and as a community? Do we have that? No. Who told us that that is not relevant? Why did we change it? It is because there are individuals out there who the purpose and agenda is to convert your young people, including many of our African people, to become basic consumers. Kenya is supposed to be a supermarket. Because you have nobody who can plow land and grow maize. Why? You get a tractor, you mess it up. We give you seed, you bring the wrong seed. We give you fertilizer, you steal it. So once you destroy the systems, next, you have to bring your food from China. Next, you have to import meat from Germany. Congo has the largest land equivalent of Europe 1.5 times. If the government decided to just put 2 million cows in Congo, it will feed its people, only cows. But what happens? The Congolese import meat from France. They're drinking water. Last time I was there in Kinshasa, it's from France. The food that is eaten, whether it's butter, now it's when Brookside has just entered the market. The Congolese cannot keep milk, they can't keep whatever. And we are saying it's not that the Congolese are stupid, no. The system has designed to just make them consumers. Look at the landmass you have in Congo. How can you tell me that you cannot discuss with the people in Congo and go and give them a land tenure system where you give everybody even 20 acres of land and you give them mechanization, you bring agricultural officers, extension officers to tell people what to do so that they can grow food, which then you can even export. Some you can then use to value add, all those things we talk about. It is a deliberate system. They are consumers.
Neocolonialism had made it that possible. Wow. Senator, thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been such an amazing day. And I believe our audience has also learned a lot from you. Of course, we will have him here again. I hope this time he won't take forever to show up, but he will be here. He's a good man.
Thank you so much. You have heavily punished me. I accept my punishment.
Hey.
Next time, make the cane only 1. Don't make it 19.
Now we are done. Now we're on the same page. We're not going to
Thank
punish
you so
anymore.
much.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next episodes.